Pathogen Environmental Monitoring Programs, an Introduction. There are several reasons you might have an Environmental Monitoring Program, or EMP, and each is a little different in purpose and scope. For example, you might want to evaluate or verify your entire Good Manufacturing Practices program, verify your sanitation program for specific pieces of equipment and perhaps the facility surrounding the equipment. Troubleshooting or investigational EMPs might be used to identify the root cause of a spoilage issue, or could be employed after a pathogen isolation in your finished product. The most specific EMP is the Pathogen Environmental Monitoring Program. This type of program is particularly important when environmental pathogens are a known or reasonably foreseeable biological hazard in your food product. Objectives for EMPs can differ. You might use an EMP to evaluate the sanitary design of the facility and to determine how easy it is to keep clean and sanitary. You might want to use an EMP program to help schedule preventive maintenance, such as determining the frequency of gasket or filter changes. You might use EMP programs to validate or verify cleaning and sanitation programs to document that your procedures and their frequency are adequate and appropriate. Pathogen detection or elimination is focused on identifying potential pathogen niches and working to prevent pathogens from establishing in the facility. These are known as Pathogen Environmental Monitoring Programs, or PEMPs. Pathogen Environmental Monitoring Programs are covered in the Food Safety Modernization Act, FSMA or FSMA, Preventive Controls for Human Foods Rule. The rule requires that you establish a food safety plan. One of the first steps in preparing a food safety plan is performing a hazard analysis for each food or food category that is produced in your facility. During that hazard analysis, you will determine what types of hazards are relevant to your food product and the environment under which it is produced. For known or reasonably foreseeable hazards, you will need to establish preventive controls. Sanitation preventive controls are designed to reduce or prevent cross-contamination of finished product with biological hazards and prevent the establishment of environmental pathogens in your facility. In some cases, that will require establishment of a PEMP. The Preventive Controls Rule considers PEMPs to be a verification activity for ready-to-eat foods that can become contaminated or recontaminated with an environmental pathogen. This cartoon provides an example of a ready-to-eat food where environmental pathogens are not likely or reasonably foreseeable. In this case, the raw materials are mixed together and filled into the final package. The packages are sealed and processed through a validated cook step or kill step. The key feature of this process is that the finished product is not exposed to the equipment surfaces or the processing environment after the kill step is applied. A canned or jarred product that goes into a retort or steam tunnel is an example of this type of food product. In this case, a PEMP is not required. This cartoon provides an example of a ready-to-eat food where contamination with environmental pathogens is a concern. In this case, the raw materials are mixed together and a kill step is applied. The finished product is then exposed to the equipment surfaces and the processing environment before the package is filled and sealed. After sealing, no further kill step is applied. An example of this type of product might be a roasted nut. After the nuts leave the roaster, they travel on a conveyor belt while they cool. The final package is then filled with the cooled nuts and the package is sealed. The sealed packaged product doesn't undergo any further processing. In this example, a PEM program is likely required. FDA has identified specific pathogens of concern for environmental contamination based on a history of foodborne outbreaks and product recalls. The ability for a pathogen to establish in a facility is related to the presence of moisture, adequate nutrients, and an appropriate temperature. When foods are high in moisture and are produced in environments where water is used for routine cleaning and sanitation, the pathogen of concern is Listeria monocytogenes. A large group of foods fall into this category, including frozen foods like vegetables, prepared meals, and ice cream, and refrigerated foods such as dairy products, prepared salads, and some types of beverages. When low moisture foods are produced in dry environments, the pathogen of concern is Salmonella. This includes many types of cereal products, baked goods, powders like spices and instant beverages, nuts and seeds, and chocolates and confections. In summary, there are several types of environmental monitoring programs, and the structure and outcomes or objectives of each will differ. The Preventive Controls for Human Food rule requires as a verification activity that pathogen environmental monitoring programs are established when the hazard analysis determines that contamination of ready-to-eat foods with an environmental pathogen is a hazard that needs a preventive control. Listeria monocytogenes and Salmonella are target pathogens for PEM programs in wet and dry facilities.